Hey everyone, Casey Corum here, producer of the podcast. We have officially wrapped season 3 here at the Ferment. For the next few weeks, we'll be reposting some of our favorite episodes from this season. Thanks again for listening and see you in 2022. Peace.
The Ferment.
Welcome to the Ferment Podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. This episode was recorded live at our Sing Together event in Atlanta, Georgia. Today's guest is world-renowned vocal coach Jan Smith.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the Ferment. My name is Adam, and I have a very special guest this morning, Jan Smith. You want to say hello, Jan?
Hello, Jan.
Exactly. Yeah. Clearly a professional. Jan, why don't you do this? I know who you are a little bit, and Mike O'Brien knows you maybe more than me, but I think a lot of us here don't know who you are or what you do. Will you just give us a little synopsis about who you are and what is it that you do in this world?
So first of all, thank you for having me here with you, and thank you all for being here. I'm a singer-songwriter. Started out, like many of you perhaps, just as a kid playing guitar a long time ago. Growing up in Southern gospel churches, that was my ilk of the Woodstock era, so I started playing rock and roll music. I cut my first record when I was 15, started touring and doing what rock and roll people do, and eventually started working in studios, recording, helping other vocalists, and ended up saying yes to a gentleman who ran a rock and roll guitar school. He needed somebody to do vocals with rock singers. And at that point, nobody was really doing that. So I started helping rock and roll singers, urban singers, rappers, hip hop artists with their voices. I knew enough to be dangerous. And so it translated over into being the go-to girl for most of the industry. So fast forward to this point, 30-something years later, I own and operate Jan Smith Studios, which is a vocal production and artist development facility. We cater to the industry in a non-classical manner, doing all sorts of tour prep, taking care of artists, doing artist development, and vocal production and vocal development.
Yeah, and so one of the key things that you do, though, in all of that, there's a lot there, like vocal production, artist development, all those sorts of things. But I know one of the key things you do is you help people care for their voices. Like you really help people think about their voice in a specific way that sometimes we don't, because we just kind of take it for granted, don't we? Like I do anyway. I just think, oh, well, I talk or I sing or whatever. And I know that I was reading on your website, you use this phrase, vocal athlete, which I thought that was a very interesting phrase. I'd love for maybe you to unpack that for a moment.
So just by way of asking the 4 questions I always ask, I'll ask you.
What's happening, guys? Yeah.
How many vocal cords do you have?
I have no idea, Jan.
Okay, where are they located?
In my neck.
Okay,
I don't know.
I'll give you partial credit for that. Okay, what are they made out of?
Cells.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. And how do they function?
I literally have no idea. So maybe you should just unpack that, right?
And most people don't.
Yes.
You know, I find that guitar players know about guitars and strings and wood and picks, and, drummers know about drum heads, and they know about different types of drums and all the things that drummers do, the thrones, etc. But singers don't know anything about their vocal cords or how they work. So I start with those 4 questions because I think without knowing that, you can't really understand the rest of the function of what you're doing or what you're calling yourself. So you have 2 vocal cords. Here's what's really dope about that. There is no synthetic fiber on the planet Earth as of today's date, 2021.
Correct.
That medical science or technology has been able to come up with that can duplicate or replace their function in your body. Now think about that from the perspective of all of the advances that medicine and technology have made, good, bad, or indifferent, okay? They can take my heart out of my chest and put it in your body, and you can live with it after I'm dead, hopefully. They can take your eyeballs out of your head, put them in somebody else's face who's never seen before, and they can have vision. They can build you bionic limbs. They can, replace your shoulder, do all kind of amazing things, and some things are kind of scary. But they can't replace the vocal cords. They can't duplicate them. I think
Have we talked to Elon Musk about this yet?
Elon Musk can't do it either.
Can't. I mean, we're going to Mars, Jan.
No. But see, that's what's so unique. I think that's God's thumbprint in our throats, and it says that we are known by our voices, and everybody is unique and individual. Even if you had a split cell twin brother or sister of the same DNA, there would be something uniquely different about the sound of your voice and theirs. I think that is amazing. And that's what I love about working with people's voices, because we're all that unique. So you have 2 vocal cords. They're made out of soft cartilage, like the cartilage in your ear, except for 2 little bitty thin fine strips of that, okay?
And for those who are listening on the podcast later, 80% of the room just reached and touched their ear.
And so did I.
We just did that, didn't we?
So you have 2 little strips of cartilage. For you guys, if you'll touch your necks where your Adam's apple is, girls, we don't have that. But this bony ridge cage in your throat is called your larynx. And right in the center of that, women, we have a thoracic bone. Gentlemen, yours is a thoracic bone also, but we call it the Adam's apple, okay? Testosterone creates that for you guys. And so what happens is right behind that thoracic bone, housed inside the larynx, horizontally over your windpipe, is where your vocal cords live. So for guys, it's between a size of like a quarter to a $50. For women, about between the size of a penny to a nickel.
Wow.
Men have 10% more body mass from bone and muscle above the waist than women do. We're more equally distributed because we're built as incubators. And so the bottom line is our vocal cords, our anatomy, are smaller. Testosterone and estrogen has a lot to do with that. So you have 2 vocal cords. They're made out of soft cartilage. They're housed horizontally over your windpipe, and they work by way of vibration. Air flows through them. They vibrate, and they create more of what looks like a seal. And that's where the vibration comes from. And very similar to tuning guitar strings, if you tighten a string, it vibrates faster. So we tighten and loosen strings to tune them. Well, your vocal cords are like all 6 guitar strings rolled into 2. The guitar strings have a big fat string on the bottom, the E string, and a very thin high E string with various dimensions in between. So your vocal cords actually change density when you tighten and loosen them, and that's how we control pitch. The more we pull them tighter, there's nowhere for them to go, so they can't get longer. So what they do is they actually change density and vibrate faster. So we pull them tighter, they thin out, vibrate faster, we have a higher frequency. The slower they vibrate, the looser they are, the thicker they are, the lower the note. So when people abuse their voices, or they've got a bad cold and they have that nice low, gravelly sound, it's because their vocal cords are swollen. You're storing edema. The vocal cords are thicker. And so when you try to sing high notes and thin out, they don't thin out if they're puffy and swollen.
Okay, so did we answer all 4 of those questions now?
We did. You have 2 vocal cords.
2.
They're made out of soft cartilage.
Yes.
They're housed horizontally over your windpipe.
Yes.
And they work by way of vibration.
There we go. All right. Did everybody feel like they learned something just now? Yeah. Okay. That's amazing. We at least know Jan's 4 questions.
Okay.
Okay. So you've been helping people with their voices and like even vocal production and artist development for 30 years. Mm-hmm. What is it that most singers just don't get about their voices, besides just like not knowing the 4 questions? Like I'm thinking about people who are even really proficient singers, people who get up and can just knock a room out dead, mm-hmm. and then they come to you. What do they kind of like not know? Is it they don't know anything? Have they cared for themselves? Like, what is it that most singers are just not getting when it comes to caring for their voice as an instrument?
So do you go to the gym and work out?
I do. I love to be active.
Why do you do that?
I want to be stronger. I want to have endurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a means to an end with why you're doing it, and also you're improving your physical health, right?
Yeah.
singing is the same thing. It's cartilage, it's physical material. And we attribute a lot of emotional, aesthetic, and spiritual things to singing, but it's a physical function first. So being that it's physical, why aren't you conditioning your voice? If you're calling yourself a singer, just like if you're calling yourself a runner, people don't generally just all of a sudden jump up and go run a marathon. They're going to condition for that because there's a reason to get the body primed. Even professional athletes, if we watch them on the Olympics, they are going to stretch their legs out before they run. Why do they do that?
Just warming those muscles up. They're getting ready to go.
And how does that help them or prevent injury or whatever?
Yeah, all of those things, right? Yeah,
Right.
I mean, like it would keep them from tearing a hamstring or something.
Yeah, it has to do with blood flow and oxygenation. But singers are so ignorant that they will just stand up and sing and think, well, after about 3 or 4 songs, I start to sound good. Duh. Why aren't you warming up prior to that so that the first song sounds good, right?
Why aren't you? Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the other issue, and this will be something for all of the worship people listening, is why would you have a rehearsal prior to the performance? Why would you run the race before you run the race? There are a lot of things that don't make sense, and singers and those people who helped orchestrate them don't know that.
Okay, so time out here. You just said, why would we run the race before we run the race? What should we do, Jan? Like, we've all been having rehearsals every single Sunday morning before we do Sunday morning church. What do we do?
Worst thing in the world for all of your singers. Yeah.
Worst thing in the world. Okay.
Having rehearsals is
Yes.
fine.
Yeah.
Having the singers sing is not.
Okay.
So getting mic checks
Yeah.
takes hello, check, 1, 2, 3,
Got it.
ba-na-na-na-na, and then you're done.
Yeah.
But having singers sing full out prior to the service is not good utilization.
Okay, so just tell me what would be good utilization from your perspective as like a coach, trainer, therapist, restorer of voices.
Have your rehearsals and make sure that people are prepared before they walk in to do the performance, number one.
Yeah.
And that's at a different time,
Thursday night.
whenever.
Yeah. That's when people
Saturday
have worship
night.
rehearsals.
Or Wednesday nights is usually another big one. But, making sure that people are prepared, first of all, that they're not waiting until Sunday morning to learn the words to a song or
Yeah.
get their vocals ready. Having people conditioned, having the singers warm up while the band is warming up, and then doing a line check and run through, a piece of something, get the mics right, and you're good to go.
Yeah. And so then on Sunday morning, having some kind of like actual vocal warm up.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Help me, Jan.
So
Help us.
So every singer
Yeah.
should be warming up every day.
Okay.
Every day that you live and breathe. If you're a singer, you're using the same vocal cords to talk all day with. Why wouldn't you warm them up in the morning? You see what I'm
So
saying?
this is like going to the gym.
Very much so.
Okay, let me ask you a question about that. So I know that if I like to go to the gym, I actually enjoy it. I like to ride my bike. I like to go to the gym. I like to do stuff. And I know that if I go to the gym like 5 days a week, I feel really good. Sometimes I want to go 7 days a week because I just need to get that energy out and I'm a kinder person. But I know that if I go 7 days a week, it's bad for me. Like I start to get diminishing returns. I begin to wear myself down. Is there some sort of an interplay there with our voices as well, where we need the exercise, we need the strengthening, but we also need rest?
Sure, God took a day off. Why shouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that God designed life for us to rest. And vocally, I tell my clients that it's like, 6 out of 7 days is what I ask you for. If you want to do 7 out of 7, if you're prepared for that, okay. But God took a day off, so can you.
So that's still, it's right in place. So you're saying to singers and people who are really caring about that vocal instrument, do like some sort of a warm up 6 days a week or whatever, really, really care. And then on your 7th day, take a rest.
Yeah, and that also means shut up and stay off your phone and don't be singing and don't be talking and don't
So
go
you
to the
mean
studio.
talking too?
Talking is using the same vocal cords that you sing with.
It's funny how I just miss stuff, doesn't it? Yeah.
The
Also,
same,
can
the
I
same
just say-
vocal cords that you preach with, the same vocal cords that you use to lead people to a relationship with the Redeemer. So, yeah.
Can I just say, Jan, I really like you.
Thank you.
I like your
Most
direct
people
nature.
don't. I'm
I'm
like Listerine.
I love this. I'm an Enneagram 8. I'm feeding off of your directness like so much right now. Don't give me the colors. Just tell me the truth, Jan. I love it.
I'm kind of like Listerine. They hate me, but they use me, so that's okay. I'm good.
It's so good. It's so good. Well, let me ask you a couple specific questions that I've written down about like vocal stuff that I was just thinking about. Does water help our voices when it feels dry? Like, I know it feels good, but does it actually help?
So water helps your body, period. I mean, there are very few things that we can't live without. One of them is air, and the other one's water. You can live without food longer than you can live without water.
Yeah.
Because of what it does with the hydration of the body, and also the vocal cords have a very thin mucous membrane that sits over the top of them to protect them as they're vibrating over 100 times per second. Think about this. Your vocal cords vibrate over 100 times per second by the time you blink your eyes, and can go upwards of that. So it's amazing how fast they are, and so we don't want that friction to create heat or heat to create swelling. So staying hydrated is incredibly important for singers, for people, period. In America, it's amazing to me that one of the leading causes of heart failure is dehydration, and we can turn on faucets.
I'm going to have a beverage.
There you go. I mean, I've been to Africa several times, and I've seen where people walk literally 7 miles one way to drink water that we wouldn't wash a dog in. I mean, it's amazing that we can turn on faucets in our country and have safe drinking water, and people die of dehydration. So water, that sip of water that you just took, it takes 25 minutes to 5 hours for that to process through your body to get back up to hydrate your vocal cords.
Okay, so if I'm feeling dry, just going and having a big glass of water, it's actually not helping that
That's
right
correct.
now. So that's at least 5 hours away.
25 minutes from now, you're going to sound great.
There we go. Okay.
So staying hydrated for singers is an all-day affair.
So if I'm thinking about Sunday morning, I really need to be drinking water on Saturday afternoon.
You need to be drinking water on Friday and Thursday and Wednesday and Tuesday and Monday and Sunday. And the reason why...
Duly noted.
So what you want to do is start drinking water in the mornings because you've been dehydrated from ever how long you sleep at night. So if you sleep for 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 or whatever, your body is dehydrated. So the first thing you want to do is drink water when you wake up, and then continuously drink it throughout the day. And that keeps you hydrated for everything that you're going to do.
Okay, so let me ask you a question about coffee. I know most worship leaders like coffee.
I don't drink coffee.
There you go, guys. That's all you need to know. If Jan ain't drinking it, cut it out. Is that what you're saying? Like, is it bad for us?
I'm saying that coffee is a diuretic. So when you're drinking coffee, there are a lot of things that have to do with digestion and reflux and GERD and things like that. You know, acid from your stomach can burn the crap out of your vocal cords. So and that's a very serious thing, and more so for men than women because of esophageal cancer. Not a nice thing to be diagnosed with if you're a singer. So coffee is a vocal irritant, number one. It literally irritates the nerve endings in and around the vocal cords. Number two, you're sucking fluids out of your body when you're drinking coffee. So for every cup of coffee you're drinking, you should be drinking 2 bottles of water. Are you doing that?
I don't know, Jan. Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah. And so a lot of people say, well, I got to have my coffee. It's like, okay, well, I don't need it, and I'm not going to drink it. If you're drinking enough water otherwise, having a cup of coffee in the morning,
not the biggest deal.
It's not going to kill you, but you got to think about your physiology and how your body processes the rest of that too. Matters a whole lot.
What about green tea?
I like green tea. Been to China, and I love real green tea. Same kind of thing. You have to look at the caffeine. Green tea has more medicinal properties in it than it does the negative. Yeah. Just straight coffee, it makes people feel happy, but
So maybe green tea is baby steps to the elevator.
I don't drink a lot of that either. So it's mostly just water.
Okay, so what do we do when our voices feel tired? Like as
Shut up.
Yeah. Because sometimes I'm less of a worship leader these days, more of a preacher.
Sure.
And
more of a talker.
More of a talker,
Yeah.
like podcasting and talking and preaching, and my voice will feel really tired sometimes.
Yeah, this pandemic has killed me. I mean, being online with people and having to do online lessons requires so much. I mean, we don't realize that, but it requires so much more vocal energy. And if you can imagine sitting in your driveway in your Maserati, okay, and you drive up 2 inches and back 2 inches and up 2 inches and back 2 inches and up 2 inches and back 2 inches and up 2 inches and back 2 inches, you're going to wear out that 2 inches of rubber, and the whole rest of the tire's not being used. So that's what's happening to people's voices, and talking typically does that to my pastors and the politicians and other people, the people who are vocalists, television personalities that I work with, who are not singers but who are vocalists. Same kind of thing. And nodules can develop. A lot of pastors, believe it or not, are like my rappers. They wear out a very specific portion on the vocal cords, and we have to work around that and make them kind of change a little bit about the pattern of what they're doing, because they're continuously rubbing that same spot.
Okay, so what do you mean change a little bit about the pattern of what they're
doing different dynamics, using your voice, making sure that you're not staying right here the whole time and you're talking to people and you're getting right. That's what happens. If you think about rappers in particular, they're known for that one sound and what
projecting
happens.
Energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they work really hard. And pastors do too. It's a very emotive thing. And if you're watching or listening to, different preachers online, you can start to listen to exactly where their frequency band is. Well, that's also where they're wearing that out.
And so when I feel tired, is that just my body saying, "Shut up"?
I think that it's your voice saying, "I'm fatigued with how you're using me, and what can you do differently?" Are you conditioning? Would be the first question I would ask you. Are you doing anything to build in, strength and endurance and longevity for what you're doing? The answer to that is probably no. Are you warming up? And are you cooling down? That's the other thing about using your voice, just like athletes, professional runners, if they're doing a marathon, they'll come off the track, flop down on the asphalt before they even leave the track and start stretching their legs out, because they know if they don't do that, they're not going to be able to walk tomorrow, right? Much less run. So the bottom line is muscles store heat and pack blood. That draws lactic acid. Lactic acid makes things stiff. Well, your vocal cords are cartilage. Hello. So if you're using them at a certain frequency and just leaving them in that condition, you wake up tomorrow, you have to clear your throat, you're trying to get the crabs out and the cobwebs. It's because you've stored heat, blood, lactic acid, stiffness, and there you go again.
Inflammation, the
Correct.
whole thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the more you
the heat
do
part
that,
is the inflammation part, right? Like it's
and the blood, leaving if people are singing really hard and especially really quick, then your body's going to do what you're asking it to do. It's going to service and send you that blood, right? So if you're asleep at night and somebody knocks on the door and said, "Hey, there's a fire, we got to get out," how long does it take you to get up and run?
No, I can run.
Right? Because your legs are the largest muscles that we have, and what happens is they're fight or flight. They're ready to go. Certain things never stop. Well, the vocal cords are not that. We don't have to have our voices to survive. Okay? So they can lay dormant during the evening, at night, or when you're sleeping. And when we start putting pressure on them, if you haven't conditioned them and warmed them up, they're not going to be at optimum level, number one. Number two, when they do have all that blood and heat and the jugular veins are pumping up there, you don't want to leave it there. They're very small. They're self-contained, right? All that sits there, and then you're leaving it there, right? Try to use it again later or the next morning. You're not going to hit your high notes. And over a period of time, if they stay swollen, you'll start getting friction. Friction creates heat, nodulars, that kind of thing, polyps, etc.
Wow. Okay, so you've mentioned this morning the importance of warming up, and now you've mentioned
cooling down.
Mm-hmm. Can you what is a good warm up? I wouldn't even know what that is. And what is cooling down? I wouldn't even know.
The opposite of warming up.
Talk quieter, like slowly talk quieter until I whisper, and then I'm done. I don't even know. I wouldn't even know where to start.
So whispering is one of the most violent things you can do to your vocal cords. Even if you're hoarse, you're better off speaking through it than whispering. So keep that in mind. And a lot of people go...
I'm writing that down. Whispering is violence to your voice.
It is. It creates flutter tone, which makes them beat against each other versus vibrating adequately. So a lot of people go down to that, crackly low, I'm going to go down here and talk like that. They think they're saving their voices. There again, that's one of the worst things you can do. That's like putting an egg in a frying pan. Raising your vocal pitch slightly, not like Mickey Mouse, but just raising it up a little bit helps. If your voice is very fatigued and tired, making sure that you're watching your volume so that you're not like pounding more volume through. Going through an entire warm up and cool down right now is not going to serve the time very well. Mm-hmm. But
there's probably like a video or something people can watch, right?
There are lots of videos that you can watch. It doesn't make them good.
Yes.
The internet is good, bad, and ugly. Yeah. So understanding the process is just like you wouldn't all of a sudden start doing lunges the first thing when you're just waking your body up. So it really is a gradation of how you're introducing certain things. An easy way to start is by working on compression, just by doing psst, like hissing, because you set up the right kind of the breath control, and you've seen the lip trills. That's a great one. That's just kind of a general good thing to do. So singers could do that when they're stuck in traffic and stuff like that, and that helps out of context even of a warm up. So the most things in warming up are ascending in nature. Cooling down would be descending. So if your voice is high and hot, you want to start high and begin to just filter it down versus continuing to bump the grind up.
Amazing.
That's just simple. That's very, very limited.
No, I get it, but I see where you're going with it, and it actually does make sense. And I just realized I never think about this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
Until they have to see a surgeon, then they come see me.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to ask you is, when do people come see you? Is it when they've damaged, or when they've like?
A lot of times, when people are in trouble, of course. I mean, that's, if you're sick, you're going to see a doctor usually. When people are having different levels of difficulty, or if they're prepping for something, I'm fixing to make a record, I want to sound better, or I'm fixing to go on tour, what do I need to do to make sure I can last for 380 shows out of 365 days? Like, okay, all right, So the demands that we put on the human voice are the only thing that I know that's similar to that is what we do to our feet, the bones in our feet, and how much pressure the feet actually endure is amazing. Our voices are very close to that.
Well, as you were saying that, I'm just thinking about artists going on tour and maybe needing to prep, and so they reach out to you. Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about how in church culture, like the Christmas service time, like how many people here do like 87 services on Christmas Eve, or Easter?
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about
big Christian holidays.
Yes, I was just thinking like even those moments might be moments where worship leaders a week or two before might want to get in contact with someone like you and begin to prep and train for these big weekends that are coming, when they may actually do 7 or 8 services
and kill me going into Christmas and Easter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I do see a lot of that.
But there's something to that, though. I mean, like, because a lot of these worship leaders will do a zillion services, and you think about Easter, it's not just a zillion services, but it's probably a lot of high notes, a lot of energy in there.
And it's what you just said. It's the increase of all that people are not prepared for. And if you're conditioned for that, it's not such a shock to add something in. But learning how to pace yourself is also of equal importance. And people, if you've got 86, not 86, but if you have, instead of 3 services, you're doing 6, or instead of 2 days, you've got 5 days now.
Yeah.
Why would you go blow out on the first one?
Mm-hmm. Think about it.
It's the difference in doing a sprint and doing a marathon, and understanding how to pace yourself throughout all of those. And I always go by the top 10th percentile rule with my artist. If you have 100, a 69, a 78, and a 20, that doesn't average out to an A. Even though you had 2 hundreds in there, right? If you have a 91, a 90, a 90, a 95, and a 97, those are all A's.
Yeah.
Pacing yourself to stay in the top 10th percentile of performances is what I go for. Going for 100% every time is the dumbest thing on the planet. Because you're going to have great moments, but having consistently great performances is what you're really looking to do.
Okay, talk to me about allergies. We live in the South.
They suck.
Yes. I mean, we wake up sometimes and we just, our heads are filled with, I just call it sludge.
Snot, yeah.
Yeah, snot and sludge. And you're thinking, okay, I've got to lead worship, or I've got to preach here in a little bit. And you take a shower and you clear all that stuff out. Are we damaging ourselves? I feel like from listening to you this morning, maybe we're hurting ourselves.
Well, we're killing the earth is what we're doing. The real truth is we are the pollutants, and the earth is just doing what it's supposed to do. The trees are suffocating too. We're killing them, and so they're over-pollinating, and so are the plants, because that's what they're supposed to do, is clear the air. And unfortunately, when they do that, they're killing us because we're killing them. So when I was growing up, and I'm older than probably most everybody here. I'll be 65 in August. And so high pollen count was like 300. It's like 1,300. It's in the thousands now. It's crazy. We're sucking in particles, and there's nothing we can do about that unless we stop our, footprint on the earth. So what do we do about the body, which creates a histamine reaction? And that's what snot basically is. It's saying something's really irritating me. I'm going to keep this out of your body, so it like clogs you up. The unfortunate truth of that is, and then it gets in the respiratory system, and then we've got inflammation there, and that makes it more difficult for my singers, and it inflames your vocal cords, because anything that you breathe passes through your vocal cords. That includes smoke and vaping and any hookahs and anything else that people decide to do. Sheetrock dust, anything is going to pass through your vocal cords. So first of all, smoking and vaping are contraindicated, but steam is your friend.
Okay. What do you mean? Like,
it's the only way that
get in
you
the sauna?
Well, yes, or get you a small facial steamer. Just for the moisture, because it's the only way that you can immediately hydrate your vocal cords. So all of your worship... You
said immediately hydrate.
Because you're breathing it in.
So we can bypass that 25 minutes to 5 hour thing, right? Of drinking water.
Yes, indeed. So steaming before you get up to preach or sing is a great thing. I'm not saying that you can bypass it always.
No. I just heard you say a hack. That's what I'm saying. That felt like a hack.
Well, it is.
Yes.
Because, and all of your churches, by the way, should go out and buy steamers for their worship singers and have them in the green room. Because if we have steamers and people can steam 1 or 2 minutes before they walk out, they're going to have better performance just because they're hydrated immediately like that.
Guys, I feel like that was worth the price of admission. I feel like we just learned something really, really useful. Mike, you have those at your place, right? Like you've always done that.
He
right?
does now.
I know. I feel like I've been in Mike's studio with the little steamer thing, but I just kind of
Mike O'Brien, of course, has those.
Yeah. Okay.
The same way that Caesar's Palace in Vegas was designed for Celine Dion. They have, and it's amazing. It's an amazing stage. They have vents in the stage that literally blows steam while she's on stage singing.
So it's like moisturizing the air.
Absolutely it is. And she had that design. They designed that stage for her. And she is an amazing artist, like ridiculous. And she takes care of her instrument like nobody I've ever seen.
Okay, so let me ask you about Celine, because I was reading, and I don't even know if this is true because it's on the internet. Maybe it's fake news, Jan.
That makes it true.
I don't know, Jan. But I had read that Celine had like weakness in a vocal cord due to a virus.
Sure.
Viruses can, like, what is
Lyme disease?
Who upset the viruses? Is what I'm trying to figure out. Like, there's coronavirus and they're trying to kill us, and now we've got like Celine is getting killed by a virus in her vocal cord. Like, what's happening here?
Strokes can paralyze one or both vocal cords. Any kind of nerve damage. There's all kinds of things that can affect your vocal cords. People that have any kind of respiratory problems, bronchial things, coughing too hard, I have found out can create, just clearing your throat, the irritation of that. You can have vascular breaches. You can blow a bleeder. There's all kinds of things that can happen to you as a singer that you don't think about until you have to think about it.
So, like, she got a virus and it happened to touch the one thing that maybe she would never want it to touch.
Yeah, Lyme disease is really also famous for that. Shania Twain is a client of mine, and she has Lyme disease, and that has been a major issue.
And so you've been helping these people with these kinds of things figure workarounds.
Lyme disease is really tough because it's very unpredictable, and more people have it than know it, and it can manifest itself anywhere in your body. Rob Thomas's wife, Marisol, has had neurological problems because of it. It's a really evasive type of virus, but very, invasive also, the way that it affects my singers.
Well, let me ask you another question, especially since you work with people who are at the top, like 1% of like singers, people like Celine and Usher and these sorts of folks who like depend on their voices in a really unique way. I'm interested in how they approach their voice. And I guess I'm asking that because, worship leaders, we're depending on our voice, but maybe we don't think of it the same way. So would you tell me the way maybe Usher thinks about his voice and how he approaches care, so that maybe our worship leaders can begin to say, you know what, my voice does matter. Like, can you talk to me about that just for a second?
So, yeah, I will. First of all, Celine is not my client. I've met her and I know her, but she's not my client. But Usher is, on the other hand, and I've worked with him since he was 17. And he thinks much differently of his voice now than he did then.
Okay, so talk to me about how he thought of it then and then maybe now, that little transition.
He was young, and Usher had already won a Grammy by the time he was 15. So he was already plugged into the professional industry. He also went through puberty late. His voice didn't really start changing until he was 17, and that's when he came to me. It had to do with him losing some of his falsetto when his voice changed, and he had a big gap in between his chest voice and falsetto. Helping him to understand conditioning, and he's an incredible athlete, and he's a great vocal athlete. He is actually probably one of the best singers I've ever worked with. And I say that because of how he takes conditioning seriously. He's very methodical and he's very regimented. I love working with athletes otherwise because they are people who are in the military, because they're very regimented and very, if you give them something to do, it's like, okay, every day at 10 o'clock, this is what we do. That repetition builds definition, and physiology is just predictable. If I take a 400-pound woman and put her on a treadmill and give her extra water every day, and she doesn't do anything else, or a man, but they're going to lose weight because physiology says so. Your vocal cords are physiology. So when Usher really began to understand that and the regimentation of that, he knew that he could make better what he was already doing well. helping him to reach new heights, to gain everything that he had physiologically that God gave him, but also to really access all of that 4.2 octaves and to have utilization of all of that. He began to see, okay, if I want to maintain this, now that I'm 40-something, it means I've got to condition and do the other things that provide that upkeep. So he's a much different athlete now than he was then. And he was young. I mean, kids are kids.
Yeah.
Some people never grow up. Men in particular don't. But that's just my opinion.
Duly noted.
I think that once people begin to understand the physiology, and it's really cool when I help people start to warm up and cool down. If I never saw you again, you would reap the benefits from that, and you would know and keep doing it. And there are very few guarantees I make, but that one, because I understand physiology and it's going to work.
Okay, so you mentioned something, and it's another question I had in my little notebook, and it's about aging.
Mm-hmm.
So
it affects us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, yeah.
Okay, so I'm 43 now.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like just my body. I felt like my body was. I didn't feel it change until I turned 35, and it was like something happened to me. Like I get sore now, you know. Talk to me about our voices. Do our voices? Is it also that kind of thing too? Like as we age, like we got to think about
hormones, baby.
Yes. Okay.
Hormones. Hormones are so incredibly important to the brain function, to the physiology, and that's why exercise and regimentation matters even more. I'll say this again. I will be 65 in August, and I can keep up with any 17-year-old, artist on the planet. And they're like, God, Miss Jan, you're like the little ever-ready bunny. It's like, I drink water, I eat organic foods. God didn't create us to eat yellow dye number 7 and Twinkies.
What?
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and people, and they say, it's really hard to, go to Whole Foods and it's expensive. It's like, how expensive is cancer? How expensive is diabetes? How expensive is heart failure?
Yeah.
Eat an apple. Stop eating.
Eat an apple. I love this.
Eat an apple. Stop eating Big Macs. Fast food is not food. It's fast. Mm-hmm. Go to the grocery store. Stay on the exterior. You can buy celery, you can buy apples, and they're like, that's boring. Okay, maybe I'm boring. And let me say, I have lived my life in ways that are outside of God's covenant. I was in rehab when I was 17. I understand the difference.
Yeah.
Eating good food, eating things that energize you. What kind of car do you drive? Let me just do this. What kind of car do you drive?
I drive a Toyota pickup truck.
Okay. If you could have any car on the planet, if money was no issue, what would you drive?
I would get one of those Elon Musk, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of gas would you put in that Elon Musk?
I wouldn't put any gas in it.
Oh, you're talking about an electric car.
I would get an Elon Musk electric car, the Model S.
But you just defined that. You would do what the manufacturer said because that's what the car is designed for, right?
Yeah.
So for those of us who might drive a Maserati or a Lamborghini, you would put premium gas in it because that you would probably find real gas, not diluted gas, because that's what would make the car really, really, really run, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even with an Elon Musk or whatever, would you ever put sand in the gas tank of your car?
No.
Why?
That would kill the car.
And people take better care of their cars than they do of their bodies. Mm-hmm. People are dumping sand in their gas tanks, and they expect to have precision performance, and it doesn't work that way.
One of the things I hear you saying today, so much of what you're saying this morning is, it feels like you're talking to us like we're in the NFL. That's what it feels like. It feels like, because you're saying things like, drink water, take care of your body, go to the grocery store, eat from the outside edge. I see Michael Jordan with his, did you ever watch the Michael Jordan documentary? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like everybody sees Michael Jordan perform well, but what they didn't realize is Michael Jordan was taking care of himself.
No doubt.
Right?
And people.
So that's kind of a switch in our mind, isn't it?
I doubt that they had, McDonald's in the Garden of Eden. I mean, I'm just, again, we're talking biblical principle. This is a temple. Hello.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to God's temple? How are you taking care of your temple? And I'm not saying if you want a piece of pizza, have a piece of pizza.
Sure.
I love cold pizza even. I'm an old rock and roll girl. I get it, but I'm not going to live on pizza. I don't live on fast food. I don't eat a lot of fast food. I just don't. I would rather drink a formulated shake that has protein in it and drinking fluids. And I also don't change the times, when you're flying and all these, your body is like not used to that. I try to keep on as close to my time zone. If I go to LA, I'm going to be drinking dinner, not alcohol. I'm talking protein and vegetable things, or eating a light salad versus eating a steak or any other kinds of heavy meats or anything, which I don't eat a lot of anyway, but late at night, because my body is not used to that time clock. It's not good for you.
It's interesting because so much of what you're saying this morning it feels more holistic. That's what I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing I've been talking maybe at a granular level about voices. I've been asking these questions, and I keep hearing you talk more holistic about our whole life, our schedule, our body, what we eat, what we drink. All of this stuff matters, right? Yeah.
It does, and I am the first one to say I don't get enough sleep, but how I care for myself otherwise is what matters most. So if I'm shy on sleep, which I've never required a lot, I'm going to make sure that I'm hydrated and doing all the other stuff that I need to do.
Have you ever used one of those Whoop straps? Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
It's
I don't have time.
It's amazing. It's unbelievable because it'll tell you like how much sleep you actually got and whether it was any good or not.
I don't need it to tell me. I know how much I don't get.
Jan, I feel like you need more sleep.
I definitely do. Especially today. Mike told me I don't live in Atlanta, and he said, you got be here at 9:00, and I was like, what? 9? Like, okay.
Yeah.
So I got up at 6:30. I'm just like, I usually see 6:30 on this side, not this side.
Hilarious. Well, thank you for doing this, and thank you for sharing. And I want you to I want to ask you maybe 2 more questions,
Okay,
and then we'll
sure.
wrap. This is a podcast that's going out to tons of worship leaders and songwriters, not just in this room, but around the world. Like, there'll be thousands of people listen to this in the States, in the UK, and
y'all.
That's right. And you know not just the artist world, but you also know the worship world. Is there anything that you would like to say to worship leaders who are leading week in, week out that maybe we haven't covered yet, as it relates to just their vocals and what they do?
It's really the same thing. I mean, when I work with the folks in Reading, or North Point or Willow Creek or whoever, it's the same thing. It's the lack of information. I believe that knowledge is power, and the application of that's going to make you more successful. People just don't know what they don't know, and what you don't know can hurt you. So helping people to understand the basics, like what you've asked today, are incredible questions, because it helps people go, wow, I never thought of that. And when you really think about it, and when you really understand the physiology, you start there on the physical plane, and then you can add in the emotional, the aesthetic, and the spiritual. And it's all spiritual. I believe that singing is the closest thing to God that I know. We were born to praise. We were born to sing. We were born to glorify God. So it's a natural endeavor. And so is the body, the physical body, taking care of that, understanding it. And yes, it ages, but within the confines of that, it shouldn't limit you. And if you take care of it now, it matters later. We know that about it too. So it's really about helping people understand basic conditioning. If you need to get into, doing vocal calisthenics, then there's more involved in that. If you're going to do things like run hurdles or, jump the pole vault or whatever, you've got to do a little bit of different conditioning. But if you're just going to be a runner, okay, here's the way we condition for that.
Well, I love that. I love what you said a moment ago. What you don't know can hurt you.
It can, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that feels like something we should underline.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. One more question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is maybe a question for people who are listening to this podcast and going, okay, yeah, I definitely need help. Like my voice, it feels maybe different than it did before, or I feel pain in my voice, or I'm really tired and I've been pushing through. How can they like get some help, either from you or from your staff? Like, can they reach out? Like, do they just go to your website, jansmith.com? What do they do?
We're all over the place. So yeah. And we're a boutique kind of operation. I don't have Jan Smith Studios. We're not a Fred Astaire dance studio all over the world.
That's right.
But we do service clients all over the world.
Yeah.
So especially now virtually, pandemic has pandemicked us.
Yeah.
So we definitely can do virtual things with our artists, and happy to help. Things like this, being able just to get information. Thank you again, getting information out to people who need it most. But hit the website, call
Perfect.
the admin, and hit me up on Instagram. I'm constantly putting out Q&As with Mama J for the sake of information, so that people can get tips and hopefully get good, solid information.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole lot of people saying a whole lot of things, and not all of them are true or good. Understand what you're getting if you're going to consult with someone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, for everybody who's listening to this podcast, everything you've heard so far, it's not fake news, right?
No, it's not.
This is the real thing. Okay, Jan, last question, and this is the question we ask everyone on the podcast, and I didn't tell you because I wanted this to be a surprise.
Okay.
And this is kind of like a hard left from everything we've been talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you dreaming about right now? What's
Me?
making your heart come alive?
So during the pandemic, we talked about this. I had to relocate my facility because of the hospital in Atlanta expanding and taking up the building that I'm in. Creating the facility that we're working with now is going to provide an opportunity for us to do more workshops and to be able to bring artists in, doing singer-songwriter workshops, helping to really develop artists and helping them understand more about that process, but showcasing artists who are under the radar, who are just incredible musicians and singers. We're doing Mama's Music House, which is kind of a television show, and I'm really excited about that because it's going to shed light on artists who wouldn't ordinarily be able to have that platform. And I think the other thing for me is really the community that I grew up in as a musician, that we've kind of, the music industry has gotten away from that somewhat and has been very singles driven and very, track driven and producer, whatever, and not artist driven. I'm an artist, and having a place where artists can come and commiserate or communicate with other artists, it's a supportive community. So I'm excited about that. Being a light on the hill in an industry that is very dark, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. It's a responsibility that God's placed on me, and I would ask all of the ears who are listening now to please pray for me and my team that we can continue to do that, to forge a path that is very necessary right now.
Well, let me ask you one more little question about
Sure.
that. What does it mean to you to be a light on the hill in an industry that's very dark? What does that mean specifically?
I work in the secular music industry. I work in the industry at large. I service churches and work with a lot of worship teams and pastors, but I'm predominantly known in the secular world for my work with the artists that you've mentioned and many others. But our industry is not Christian-based. It's not spiritual. Well, it's spiritual. People have all kinds of ideas about that. But the challenges on entertainers, the challenges on artists, actors, it's really kind of inhumane, the demands that are placed on people and how they're propped up and put up on pedestals. And it's just like, who can live up to that? And yet artists, that's their ilk, is to really achieve and to try and to be that so that they can deliver and really give their all. People break down. It's incredibly difficult. And helping to keep people grounded, helping them to know that they have someone that they can trust, and to know that what they're talking to me about, I have a whole lot of information on a lot of people, and it stays right here.
Yeah.
To have the confidence of that so they can trust. People in my industry can't trust other people.
Yeah. What I hear you saying is it almost feels like you're pastoring people. Almost feels like you're shepherding people.
I think shepherding is a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, regardless of who you are or, what your walk of life, what your path is, isn't that what we're here to do? Isn't that what the shepherd showed us to do? Isn't that what Jesus said? This is how you love other people, and not to judge them, but to be there for them. And so I think that's what I mean about being a light on a hill.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great place to wrap. That's a beautiful moment. Thanks, Jan.
You're welcome.
Thanks for spending some time with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Right here. Peace.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Casey Corum here, producer of the podcast. Thanks for listening. As always, if you've been enjoying the podcast, here's a few ways you can help us. First of all, leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. This helps more people find us. Also, connect with us on social media. Instagram at the Ferment Podcast and Twitter at FermentCast. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. See you next week. Peace.